Penguin Audio presents Since I Saw You by Beth Kery. Read by Brianna Bronte. Chapter 1. Lin Soong hurried down the sidewalk, her face coated in a thin layer of perspiration overlaid with an autumn mist. Damn this fog. There hadn't been an available taxi for blocks. She'd finally ended up just walking the 3/4 of a mile from Noble Tower to the restaurant. Her feet were killing her after a long day's work and rushing in heels. To make matters worse, her hair would be a disaster from the humidity. She imagined herself at 10 or 11 years old, and her grandmother standing over her, wielding a comb and a flat iron like a warrior's weapons. "You got this hair from your mother," Grandmama would say, her mouth grim, as she dove into her straightening task. Lin had been left in little doubt as to what her grandmother thought of the potential threat of her mother's rebellious streak surfacing in Lin herself. According to Grandmama, hair was something to be conquered and refined by smoothing and polish, just like everything else in life. Lin plunged through the revolving doors of the restaurant and paused in the empty foyer, straining to calm her breathing and her throbbing heart. She despised feeling flustered, and this situation called for even more than her usual aplomb. By the time she entered the crowded, elegant restaurant, she'd repinned her waving, curling hair and used a tissue to dry her damp face. She immediately spotted him sitting at the bar. He was impossible to miss. For a stretched few seconds, she just stared. A strange mixture of anxiety and excitement bubbled in her belly. Why didn't Ian mention that his half-brother looked so much like him? She soaked in the image of him. He was very good-looking, even if that frown was a little off-putting. He wore a dark blue shirt, and the rich brown of a rugged suede jacket brought out the russet highlights in his hair. Kam Reardon didn't know it, and she'd never tell him, but she herself had picked out the clothing he wore. It had been part of the mission Ian had assigned her to make his half-brother presentable for a potentially lucrative business deal here in Chicago. Ian had suggested a new wardrobe for his trip to the States. Kam had grudgingly agreed after some skillful nudging on Ian's part, but insisted upon paying for everything. It had been Lin who actually chose the items, however, and sent the articles to Aurore Manor in France. In fact, she'd been choosing and sending home furnishings to Aurore Manor, Kam's once grand home that had fallen into disrepair, as well. It warmed her to see him wearing the garments, first-hand evidence that he'd considered the clothing suitable to his taste. Her clothing selection hadn't helped much in getting Kam to blend in, however. He was too large for the delicate chairs lined up at the super-sleek, minimalist bar. He stuck out like a sore thumb in the trendy establishment, all bold, masculine lines and unrelenting angles. No, not like a sore thumb, Lin amended. More like a lion that found itself in the midst of a herd of antelope. His utter stillness and watchful alertness seemed slightly ominous amidst the sea of idly chatting, well-heeled patrons. Suddenly, she realized his gaze had locked on her from across the crowded dining area. "Bonsoir, beautiful. We have your table waiting," a man with a mellow French-accented voice said. Lin blinked and jerked her gaze off the man who was a stranger to her, and yet wasn't. Her boss's infamous half-brother, the wild man she'd been sent to tame. She focused instead on Richard St. Clair's smiling face. Richard was a neighbor, good friend, and the manager of the restaurant where she stood.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?